Now, while I was at the RNC meeting, I had a chance to sit down with Sean Spicer, the GOP's communications director, and ask him about the impact Trump's attacks on the party and on Spicer's boss, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, is having on the process. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, you know, with all this talk that Donald Trump has put out there about the system being rigged and crooked, is he undermining the Republican Party?
I think he taps into something, whether it's the government or the party rules, and I think for people who are just tuning into the process sometimes, he taps into a sentiment that exists right now, a frustration that I think goes from coast to coast. It's a similar frustration that Bernie Sanders taps into on the left, which is that people aren't seeing things work the way they think they should. But as the party goes, it's not helpful or constructive to us. I think we do go to a lot of lengths to make sure that people, A, understand the process, that we are as transparent as possible, and that we do everything we can to educate individuals.
We picked some delegates here just in the past couple of weeks to go to the convention from the congressional districts in South Florida. The immediate word that went out from Trump's folks was, you know, all they end up selecting was Rubio people and Bush people to fill those Trump slots. Again, encouraging this notion that the system can't be trusted.
Well, remember that in Florida delegates are bound for three rounds of voting. I mean, Florida, in fact, has the most number of bound delegate voting slots. So Trump delegates, anyone who's elected, Marco Rubio himself could be elected, Jeb Bush could be elected as a delegate, and they would be bound to vote for Donald Trump under Florida's rules because he took the most number of votes. It's a winner-take-all state.
But that's my point. Florida has the most rigid rules. Nobody else binds their delegates for 3 rounds, and yet still there was this discussion that, well, we can't trust the way the system is working in Florida. I guess that's my point is, are you worried that sort of filters into the atmosphere?
No, look, I think one of the things that we have to remember is that the people running to be delegates are party people. They are people that are active in a party. And if you stop for a second and people remember what's going on, let's say that you're a member of a Kiwanis Club. The people who run for president of the Kiwanis Club are probably in the Kiwanis Club. The people who run for delegate slots are people that are active in the Republican Party. And if you're active in the Republican Party in Florida, the chances are at some point you've been involved or supported Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio. And I think that that's the pool that you're generally picking from. The good thing, frankly, is that the system that's chosen ensures that Donald Trump, who did win the state of Florida, those delegates are bound to him. They have to vote for him.
Now, I'm sure you're aware of Roger Stone talking about, talking about days of rage and stop the steal rallies in Cleveland. When you hear what Roger Stone is saying, what is your reaction to that?
I actually think it's very unhelpful because we are going to great lengths to have an amazing convention, to have probably one of the safest conventions, to instill an environment where people can come and watch the democratic process unfold. Everything that we do, every vote that's cast will be captured on television, streamed live on the internet, and we want people to see an open and democratic process take place in Cleveland and enjoy it, watch our party, pass rules, pass some platform, talk about the solutions and ideas that we have as a party that I think, frankly, make us better than the Democratic Party. And when people say things that sort of, frankly, encourage violence or sort of allude
to
it.
He says he's going to give out the room numbers and names. Have you been hearing from people who are potential delegates that they're concerned for their own safety?
Well, people do ask questions from time to time when you hear comments like that, and we ensure that we're taking every length to go, security-wise, that we are going to make sure that everything's taken care of. But again, it is not a helpful comment. People who want to engage in this process, it's an open and transparent democratic process. Everybody knows the rules of the game. They may not like them, but at the end of the day, they are what they are. And whoever gets 1,237 delegates on a vote becomes a nominee. That's it, plain and simple, full stop. It's not 1236, it's not 1235, it's 1237. That's a majority of the delegates. If you get a majority, you win. But also remember, the thing that's interesting about the convention, I know it gets a lot less attention, is we pass a package of rules that the party lives under for the next 4 years. We pass a platform that talks about what our party believes in. There's a lot of other business that goes on at this convention that's really important to us who live and breathe the party.
Are you expecting rule changes either out of this meeting? We're taping this on the morning Rules Committee will be meeting later, or do you expect substantial changes to the rules the week before the convention?
It's a great question, because I think what people are hearing now causes a lot of confusion. So the Republican National Committee is made up of 168 members, 3 from every state and territory. That committee has a committee in it called the Rules Committee, just to keep everything real confusing. That's 56 of those members. They recommend changes to the convention, which is 112 people, to delegates from every state. What we normally do in a normal course of action is to make recommendations to the convention to say, this is what we, the RNC, think should be updated with the rules. Chairman Reitz-Priebus has said, what I'd rather have you do is make no recommendations to rules changes, because we need to make sure that people don't think that we're trying to tip the scale for one candidate or another, and we leave all of that up to the elected delegates in Cleveland.
Ted Cruz was here yesterday. John Kasich was here yesterday. I know Donald Trump is sending some emissaries. Would Donald Trump have done himself well to actually be here talking to the very people who in some ways he's maligning?
Well, I selfishly would say yes, because I think that it's great for the members of the RNC to see these candidates up in front. Donald Trump's been to the RNC before. He's been with the members. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to each campaign to decide what's the best use of time. He does, as you mentioned, have top staffers here meeting with the members, having conversations with them. So, I don't know if his time probably could have been used better at events out talking to voters, which is what he's doing. He's got elections to want to win, and I think he's out there trying to do that. But we selfishly would love to have all of our candidates here. They've been here before, and
he's going to need the RNC, though. If he's the nominee, absolutely. Do you think that gets lost on him?
No, he knows that. I understand, and I think sometimes he might go a little overboard. But he's met with us several times, as you mentioned. He's got his top emissaries down here, his top campaign staff. They've met with us. They understand that without the RNC, you can't win. We can't win without a nominee. They can't win without.
And that is because of what? Because you've got resources.
For the last 4 years, we're the only ones who've been focused on the general election. So while there's been this, primary going on, started with 17 candidates, it's whittled down to 3. Our focus day in and day out has been on that general election, putting out the best ground game possible. We've had staff here in Florida for now going on 3 years who've lived and breathed, who's reaching out to minority
Getting ready for November 2016.
Exactly. And so while they've been focused on trying to get that nomination, we've been focused for 4 years on that general election, building the opposition file on Hillary Clinton, putting a ground game together, updating our data and digital operation. We focus on that November date like a laser for 4 years, while our candidates are out trying to make the best case they can to our primary voters.
Now, do you worry at all that if Donald Trump is the nominee, that he could come in and just sort of scramble the RNC leadership?
Can't do it.
Couldn't take out Reitz-Priebus?
Cannot do it.
He could sideline him.
No,
certainly.
he can't.
Could make
absolutely
him
not. Because at the end of the day, look. First of all, it would be silly to do that. Reitz has been the most successful chairman in party history. And again, look at what he's built. We have the best ground game, the best data and digital. Mr. Trump's a smart businessman. The last thing that he would do is take away the smartest guy on the field. But he actually, when it comes to how it would occur, that's impossible. The chairman of the RNC is elected for a 2-year term by the 168 members of the committee. He's the one who raises the money. He's the one who spends the money. You can't come in and sideline anyone. You can't remove them. It's not possible.
Now, when money, for instance, that money is going to be a key thing. Do you envision that Donald Trump is going to self-finance his entire presidential campaign? I
don't know. That'll be something that he has to make the decision of. We've raised a record amount of money at the RNC. Announced yesterday we raised $153 million for the first part of this year alone. That's a huge record. Month in, month out, we raise record amounts, beat the Democrats by huge numbers. We're prepared to do what we have to continue that ground game. I think he'll have those conversations with us if he becomes the nominee, as will Senator Cruz or Governor Kasich if they become the nominee.
Donald Trump has talked about wanting to make the convention itself into more of a show.
Right.
We'll put a little bit more show business into it, a little bit more style, a little bit more oomph. What do you think about that?
That's great. Look, we're going to have the eyes of the world on us. Right now, people are begging to come to Cleveland to be part of what's going to be a historic convention. But the upside to Mr. Trump and others is we've hired some of the best people in the business at every aspect of this convention. So it's going to be a world-class convention. I think
no Clint Eastwood with a chair.
I think we tried that once.
Okay.
We're moving on. But I think it's going to be a phenomenal convention. And I think the other thing that you got to remember is that for the past 40 years, since 1976, the conventions have basically been glorified television programming. 7 to 10 at night or 8 to 11, and we have speeches. Right now, it looks like we may end up with a situation where we have important votes and important things that have to happen, whether it's our platform, our rules. and electing a nominee for president and vice president. So we may see a very different convention than we have for the last 40 years if this goes into an open convention.
If on June 7th, nobody has 1,237 pledged to them.
Bound to them.
Bound
That's
to
different.
them. 1,237 bound to them. Then you don't have a nominee
That's
until
right.
you get to...
Till you have a nominee.
So who basically is the titular head of the party at that point?
It's Reince Priebus.
And who's doing the planning
Reince
for the
Priebus.
convention?
It's always been, and it always will be. Look, when you have a presumptive nominee, and I was there 4 years ago when we did this with Romney, I've been involved in the party since 1996. What happens is that the party plans the convention. When you have a presumptive nominee, they come in and they start to put their touches on that. They fill some of the speaking slots, and the convention leaves those blocks open for them to add their touch. If there's an open convention, it defaults back always to the party. But it's the party's convention, because we're not just nominating someone. We're passing a rules package. We're passing a platform. We're having the delegates constitute us as an institution, frankly. And I think those continue to stay within the lane of the party.
The password for the Wi-Fi here at the RNC convention is what?
Hillary can't be trusted.
And who came up with that?
My team.
Not you. You don't want to take personal credit
Well, I think,
for it?
look, we've got a very creative team. We always try to have some fun, and so those little things, making the entire press corps log on to our Wi-Fi system by having a type of password that says Hillary can't be trusted. We look for every opportunity to drive our message home and to keep reinforcing that narrative.
Last question.
Yeah.
Given this year, do you wake up sometimes in cold sweats as the communications chairman for the RNC? Who said what today? I mean, it's got to be a stressful job.
I enjoy it very much. It's every day is exciting. It truly is. Some days aren't as fun as others, but it's always exciting. I love this. It's so much fun being part of this, being part of history, and hoping to elect the next president of the United States.
Sean, thank you very much
Thanks
for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Good.